From the studios of WFAN, this is Mike Zahn, Francesa on the Fan on this Monday, the second day of November, and you can almost feel that the Tired City just takes a deep breath and just this big sigh as the baseball season comes to an end, and they're having been in the ball park last night. And having watched all the drama, and there was drama. There really was. It ends what was a very eventful 5-game series. There are boring 5-game series. There are kind of 5-game series that offer very little in the way of storyline. But then there's a 5-game series that was just bizarre from start to finish. And, rarely does a team that loses in 5 games in a World Series sit there and say what might have been. But never before has there been a loser in a 5-game series that had the lead in the 8th and twice in the 9th and lost all 3 games. I mean, it says something about the Royals, who came from behind 8 times in the postseason. It says something about the Royals, who dominated their opponents in scoring after the 7th inning in a crazy fashion. And overcoming opportunities. When this series started, we talked about what the Met advantages were and what the Royal advantages were. And we talked about the Met bullpen and the Met defense, and would it rear its head? It hadn't in the Cubs series. The Cubs never got started. It didn't really, except for a momentary in the Dodger series. But it did rear its head in a big fashion. And we talked about that Kansas City would make a couple of arms really, really pay. We talked about Granderson, which did not happen. And we talked about Deneau, which did happen in a very, very big way. And then we get to last night. And, Harvey has fascinated a lot of us and me since the first time I met him in spring training that year. And I was like, whoa, this guy's different. This guy really carries himself differently. He acts differently. He really started the Mets back on a different on a different path, just like Seaver did in '67 when he came to the Mets. And 2 years later, they were champions. He was not going to accept being the butt of jokes. He was not going to accept mediocrity. He wanted something. He wanted it in a big way. And we know what's gone on this year, and this year has been a difficult year for him as he comes back from the surgery. He also has made some statements, and so has his brain trust, in quotes, made some statements which obviously didn't serve him very well. But he had a moment, as we talked about yesterday. All I wanted to see Harvey do was go out and empty the tank and give it its best shot and not worry about getting paid, or not worry about next year, or not worry about insurance, and not worry about his future, and not worried about where he's going to play and how much he's going to get paid and what's going to happen and everything else. And you know what? That's exactly what I got last night. So I have no issue with anything that I saw. And I'll tell you this. If you were in the ballpark like I was last night, there is not a chance in the world you would not have wanted him to take the ball in the 9th inning. He was that good. He was that dominant. He was that special last night. And I said, wow, you know what? I'm thinking about Familia. We know what's going on. And I was talking to my wife who was home, and she was relaying to me what was going on in the dugout, which I really couldn't see because I was right behind home plate, and I couldn't really see in the dugout, and I figured there might be a conversation going on there, but who knew exactly? And I knew what was unfolding because she was telling me. And then we got the gist that he was going to come out, and I don't know if it played all on TV last night, the way he came out to start the 9th inning. I mean, everybody else is out. He hasn't yet come back out. And then not only does he come out, he bursts out of the dugout, runs, and then jumps on the mound. I mean, now he has set the stage here. And he was this close to a night that would be remembered as part of New York sports law forever. But he had to deliver the inning, and he didn't. But I'll tell you this. I'm glad he tried. And there'll be other days for him, and I believe there'll be other days for the Mets. But I have no problem, zero. And I got on I got on Terry Collins on Sunday morning for his game 4. I thought Terry had a very bad game. I have no issue at all with him looking Harvey in the eye or Harvey looking him in the eye and Terry Collins making a bet on Harvey's heart and on Harvey's will. And he said it right. He said, listen, I had a plan in my head and I went away and went with my heart. And I went with my player. And I believed in my player who asked me. And I understand that the rote play is if he walks the leadoff bat, and he overthrew to Kane. He clearly was overthrowing when he came out in the ninth. He was so amped up and so wanted to finish this. You could see the deep breaths he was taking. And this was as dramatic can be. I mean, this is what sports is all about. You got a guy on the mound who has pitched a brilliant game in an elimination setting in front of a full house with people chanting his name as this franchise comes back from the dead. This is the guy who started the whole train moving back from the dead. He's on the mound. He's trying to get through this, and he is so pumped up and wants this so much. And he overthrew the Kane. There's no question. But you know what? You could say, he's got to be out of the game. But you know what? You didn't send him out there. As Terry Collins said, I didn't send him back out there to pitch the one batter. I made a commitment to him. And it reminded me something that years and years ago that was said about Bob Gibson in 64 as a tired Gibson pitched the ninth inning. And we'll find out how close to Gibson Harvey ever gets. And for 8 innings last night, he was as good as Bob Gibson ever was. But he didn't finish it. We know that. There's still more work to be done. But Johnny Keane watched as Bob Gibson gave up 2 home runs in the ninth inning. Now, that was long before the day of the closer and the day of the specialist. But he said at the time, I made a commitment to my pitcher's heart. And I let him pitch out of the inning. And he won the game going all the way 7-5. Think about it. He pitched in the game. He gave up 3 home runs, and he gave up 5 runs, and he was still in there to finish the game. It was a different world then. We know that. But the point is that Collins sent him back out there with his blessing. He had made a commitment to his heart. And really, that's what sports is about. And it failed. But that is the essence of what we watch for. That's the essence of what it is. You make a commitment to an athlete's heart. It didn't work. He failed. He gave up the second hit. Now you got to go get him. And it was an ugly inning. And Familia did his job. It's just that, dude didn't. And we can get into whether right. And let's be honest, that wasn't Wright's ball. We all know that. Ball was a little funky off the bat. It just was. It was tracking like a weird. It was kind of a weird ball off the bat, but it still was not Wright's ball. It was a shortstop's ball. Now that doesn't really change that much because he didn't break off third base until he released the ball anyway. He got a late jump. He would have been out by a lot. The throw was just awful. He would have been dead, and I was shocked that when he was standing on second base after hitting the double, that Dyson wasn't in the game then. I was saying, where is he? I thought you put him in the game there, and he's going to swipe third base and set up the inning. I thought, go for broke. You're up 3-1. Now you got a chance to tie the game. Put your speedster in. When he's on third, I'm thinking, how do you not put your speed guy in here? But he decided, I'm not making that move yet. We all saw it later on. We know that. I was shocked. I kept saying that in the stands. I'm saying, wait a second. Why don't they put the speedster in? Especially the way they've been stealing bases. I was shocked at that. And if he'd got him thrown at the plate, you would have been hearing that all the way back to Kansas City. Where was Dyson? But he didn't do that. And he didn't get a great jump. That play was right in front of me. And he would have been out by here to the corner. Except we know where the throw wound up. And then you know what we'd be talking about? we'd be talking about that. Familia came in and had a heck of a save, and that Harvey pitched one of the great postseason games we've ever seen. Because that's how good that game was against that lineup. In the middle of that game, he was dealing. You can't deal any better than he was dealing. And this is a night where the Mets didn't hit. I mean, Granderson leads up the game with a home run until Conforto gets a meaningless hit with 2 out at 7-2 in the bottom of the 12th inning. The Mets have in between that 2 hits. And how unlucky are the Mets to have the Cespedes thing happen with the bases loaded and no out? And you're killing him for taking him out on 0-2. If Cespedes tells you he wants to hit, you're going to take him out. He's Cespedes. Who you putting in who's Cespedes? You can't feel what he feels. If he tells you he wants to swing the bat, you can't pull him out of the game. That one's a no-brainer. I saw Cespedes say to him, I want to hit. You got to let him hit there. Now, he couldn't move. After he hit, he never even got out of the box. He couldn't even move. And he went down like he was shot. And what I thought he was badly hurt is the catcher was screaming, get out here, because he thought he had broken something. But last night, it didn't work out. It didn't work out for Harvey, who tried to make a very bold finish to what was a brilliant display. It didn't work. And Terry Collins made a gamble last night that didn't work. But you know what? I have no problem that they did it. It was what sports is all about. And I'll tell you something. You want to say that 44,000 or however many people were in that building last night influenced the manager? Maybe they did. Maybe last night the voice of the people was one of the deciding votes. And you all got to manage last night if you were in the building. And at home, I'm sure most of you, if you had a soul, were all saying the same thing. You didn't want to see Harvey go out there and throw the 9th inning of that game? I know I did. Sitting there, I did. Let's not act like Familia's been automatic in these playoffs. I wanted to see Harvey go out there and try to finish that. That's how good he'd been. He had been that brilliant. And this was a night that was it was special. And it came within an inch of being legend. It would have been a game that years from now, everyone would say they were at. I don't know where the series would have gone from there. It doesn't matter. That game would have stamped him and would have stamped this series as something that special. And it was a dramatic, the whole place chanting for him. And people going nuts when he went back out there. And the way he went back to the mountain, it was something, it was like a movie script. It was that dramatic. That's what you hope for, is to get moments like that. That's a special moment. It didn't work out. It didn't finish. They didn't get the result. I have no issue at all with what they did. And you know what? I think a lot of it is just frustration if you did. Because to me, that's what you want to see. You want to see your young athletes. You want to see guys really challenge themselves. You want to see them push. Their day's coming. Maybe it doesn't come next year. Maybe it takes a couple of years. Maybe they don't win their championship right away. But this team has turned the corner. There's going to be some changes here. There's always going to be changes on a baseball team. That's the way baseball is now. And yes, there's a very different feel today for Cespedes and Murphy after this series than there was earlier. We know that. But that's how fickle the public is. That's why if you're making decisions, you can never pay attention to them, because you know their mood is going to change and their feelings are going to change within a week based on performance. What have you done lately? But last night, Harvey was this close. He was an inch away from something that would have been forever. Didn't happen. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. But I'll tell you something. It was great to watch. Here's the Mink Man.